All right, I'm going to call this workshop session to order. And we have a presentation this evening.
Yes.
So introduce yourself and go for it.
Can you hear me very well? Okay. My name is Amin Hazadeh. I am from Transportation Planning Division. I work for North Carolina Department of Transportation. And today I'm here to discuss a travel demand model that we are in the process of working on and developing for the Southwestern RPO. I'm here for a request of Mr. Jason Marino for a presentation about the travel demand model, what it is, and why we are doing it in this area. So, quick question, how can I work with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I can use the mouse, probably. Okay, so, yes. But before starting here, is anyone here unfamiliar with the comprehensive transportation plan? Are you all familiar with it?
Yep.
Okay, so that's very good. We can save like 10 minutes probably. Okay, a travel demand model is a very powerful tool that we use for evaluating the alternative that we are proposing for a comprehensive transportation plan. It is a very good tool that we can use. Since we are familiar, I'm going to skip the first couple of slides actually. It's a very powerful tool that we have that we can evaluate the outcome of our proposed project. And let's say, for example, we can compare different projects and say, for example, how much they can help for remedy of congestion, how much we can save on travel time, the level of service, how much we can improve it. We can evaluate all those actually. We can evaluate emission and so far, and etc. and etc. I'm going to cover those here. Since you're familiar with CTP, I'm going to skip those couple of slides. Okay. That's great. Sorry. Okay. So the main objective that we have here, so first I'm going to talk about what the travel demand model is, what it is not, and why it is useful, and how the approved socioeconomic data is used actually in the process. So right now, the state has many travel demand models. So this is a map of all the areas, all the metropolitan areas, and small cities or small municipalities that we have. And if we look at this map, we will see we have more than 10 metropolitan areas that are currently using the travel demand model. These models are either developed in-house in DOT or work with private firms, so they are maintaining that, or maybe municipalities. Depending on each area, someone is in charge of those models. Some of those models are working between two states actually. For example, South Carolina and North Carolina, they are working together on developing one model. And we have like more than 20 small areas that they have their own travel demand models. If you look at all of those, they have something in common. They are mostly located, or they are all helping us modeling the travel demand and vehicle move and traffic flow in highly urbanized area or urban area. We don't see a lot of those in rural area. So as part of the initiative, Transportation Planning Division has decided to test the travel demand models in two rural areas. And Southwestern RPO and another RPO on East Coast has been selected for this effort. And I'm very fortunate to be the liaison for doing this job between local agencies and DOT. Southwestern RPO, as you can see, and on the very west part of the map, has been selected for this effort. Now I'm going to talk about what's a trouble demand model. So what's a trouble demand model? Basically, a model is a mathematical approach. A trouble demand model, it's a mathematical approach to understand actually how changes in land use, transportation infrastructure, population, and trouble demand impact the transportation system. And by impact, I mean how the traffic moves, what would be the AAVT on the roads, what would be the congestion, what would be the speed on the roads, if you make any changes to the supply of the system. We can analyze trouble demand models on many different levels. We can look at them at local level, and they have more details. And we can look at them at a statewide level. And at a statewide level, we are ignoring some of the roads, some of the main roads. Southwestern RPO is a big area of the state, and our approach is a statewide action model. So we are going and look at the big movements in this area. We are not very interested on very local traffic movement because it doesn't affect the state that much. Having a trouble demand model is very useful because we can measure the future impact of the proposed project, changes in population, changes in teleworking, for example, and how it impacts the condition and infrastructure that we have. And it is a very useful resource that we have for analyzing the data. Oops, it's very fast. Sorry. Okay. Okay. To model the trouble demand model, we have many steps. The very first one is to select a study area. Here we have Southwestern RPO. The next one is, we need to model the transportation system and road that we have. So we select our road, and from all the roads, depending on the resolution that we have, we select some of those roads based on the functional classification that they have to, study. The problem is that we cannot select all the roads because of the computational restriction, and it's going to be a very time-consuming process. So we have to select some of the roads. And this is something that we work with Southwestern RPO, local engineers and local agencies to select those roads. And to study the area, we need to define a smaller area, something that we call here traffic analysis zone. And it is very similar to the census block that the United States Census actually releases every year. After having the road, traffic analysis zone, and the study area, we need to fit the model, the population employment, so we know where people are traveling, and we can actually use population and employment and translate them to vehicle and local network. And after that, we simply compare the model output with reality, with the real data that we collect, with traffic that we collect, and based on that, we are trying to calibrate the model and come up with a good representation of the base year of our analysis. So here, for example, for the Southwestern RPO, we are trying to model the traffic in the year 2021. And we use the population, we use the transportation system, and traffic counts from year 2021 to analyze everything. Okay, next. To simplify the model, it is very basic. We convert people and jobs into trips. And we use those trips to calculate the traffic volumes. Traffic volumes could be any shape like private vehicle, bus, light rail transit, bicycles, pedestrian, and everything. And after, simulating the traffic in base year, we are trying to adjust the input, especially the population and employment, and predict the future. And say, for example, we know the population gonna increase by that many, number of jobs increase by that many. So what would be the traffic in 20 years from now? And based on the traffic situation from 20 years, we are able to identify the congestion, the bottleneck in the system, and the roads that needs improvement. And we can actually, in a proactive approach, identify those roads, and from there we can fix the problem before it happens actually. So again, this is a simplification of the model. So we have people, we know where they are living. So people, based on the activities that they have, based on the business locations that exist, like shopping, like schools, like restaurants, they decide where they want to go, or maybe a recreational park. From there, after they choosing their destination, they decide on what modes of transportation they want to choose. They can choose private vehicle, they can walk, bike, take public transit, carpool, or whatever. And after selecting the mode of transportation, they need to identify the routes that they want to take. For example, from here to downtown, maybe there are 2 options, 3 options. So they may choose any of those for whatever reason. Some people, they want to drive on high-speed roads. Some people, they just want to save on fuel. Some people, maybe they don't like, they want to avoid traffic light. So that's another issue that we need to address. And after selecting the road, we have a good representation of the, and calibration of the model. We have a good representation of the base here, and we can identify the congestion issues or any deficient road that we have and propose solution of how we can fix them. And please, if you have any questions, please ask whenever you want.
So do you think DOT will actually fund projects based on forecast modeling, or will they just wait for the actual real-time data to come in and show a problem?
That's actually in one of the slides.
That's a trick question.
I know. So actually it was in one of the previous slides. So what it does, so we know we have this STIP project, and STIP is based on funding. We have limited funding, so we need to come up with some scores to fight for the, those top, priorities. So what this actually travel demand model does, it tells us how much we can save if we invest on a specific project. It could be on travel time, and at the end of the day, or reduction in crashes. We can monetize all those values actually, and at the end of the day, we can come up with a benefit over cost ratio for that project. And you can fit that to a STIP. The selection is not my job. We are here to just provide assistance for decision maker. They have good information, and based on that, they can come up with their own decisions. So this is not something that we influence. And actually, let's see, I had this here actually. Let's see if I can find it. The CTP and travel demand model, it's a good tool, instrument that can help us for complete funding actually, because we can monetize the benefit that we receive from a proposed project, and we can show the importance of that. But it doesn't guarantee funding. That's it. We cannot guarantee because it's not our job.
But if they make one ahead.
Yes, exactly. You have a number. You cannot just, when you are going to table to negotiate for that, you have a number and say, for example, if you do this project, you will save 2% on travel time. You will reduce the congestion. You will increase the level of service actually. You reduce the number of crashes from that many to that many. Or maybe increase the number of crashes. Who knows? Depending on the project that we are proposing. So, yeah. it's a good tool that provide information for decision makers. Well, as I said, it provides information for decision makers. It's a tool that at the end of the day require professional judgment, and we are not, accept whatever the computer provides for us or software tells us to do. It still needs, personal touch. It still needs human touch and judgment and education, so we can select the right method. Well, as I said, it's a model. The model fits something, and every model has a framework. Framework means it only accepts some relevant information. Here, we are just considering population, employment, transportation infrastructure, and some other limited information. Since we cannot model everything, this model is not complete at the end of the day. But it is still better than any other alternative that we have. And at the moment, we don't have any alternatives. It's just a group of us get together probably as a steering committee and provide some input so we can come up with some recommendation, probably identify some road that has deficiency. But this software, this tool, this problem model has the potential to systematically identify all the deficiencies and tell us what will be happening in the future. So we are consistently looking at our transportation system. Well, what does this model do in non-technical terms? It provides local travel data. It tells us how people travel. It tells us about travel, trend, where people are going from one point to another. It can tell us about the impact of widening of road or building new roads, actually. If we have a plan for downtown or anywhere, let's say we want to make a social zone that only people walk or bike and there are no vehicle, we can actually measure the impact. I'm not saying we are proposing that for a year. I'm just saying, for example, if for a highly urbanized area we want to do that, we can measure the impact and see how it's impacted congestion. Okay? It's just a tool. Whatever scenario you have in your mind, doesn't matter how hypothetical it's there, you can actually feed that to the model, and the model will crunch some numbers for you, and you can compare it to the others actually. Since it is easy to work with it after you build that, you can actually replace your intersections with interchanges and see how much you can save on travel time. And since it's a tool that helps us to see the future, it can forecast the number of volumes, congestion, and speeds for a specific road in the future. From there, we can use it for micro simulation, and also if we have, some scenario for land use development, for example, building, let's say, some development, housing, or bringing a big company, you can feed that to the model, and the model tells you how the traffic changes based on those new land use plans or new development that we are proposing. Again, it is not telling you what to do. We are using that model to see how the project that we have in mind impact the traffic situation. But it has some limitation. For example, it is not a good tool for traffic signal. We have some other sources that or softwares that we use to adjust for timing. It can't design interchanges. It can see the effect of interchanges, but it cannot help design the interchanges or changes in the lane configuration or turn. When we have something very micro, or it is not something that this software or this model has the ability to capture. So this is some limitation that we need to consider. We have other tools that can help us, but trouble demand model is not. What trouble demand model do is provide a good basis for other software so we can answer these questions. Trying to go into the next page. Can you do start? Doesn't go. Problem. Okay. Here, for example, I want to say what the model does well again in a more technical term. So for Southwestern RPO, I think this is a picture of more context, so you can ignore that. For year 2050, we want to see what would be the level of service of any given road. What would be the congestion look like? We would like to change it for different scenarios. For example, if there's a hurricane, if there's earthquake, if there is flooding or road blockage, if we are planning for a special event. These are questions that we can answer and see how they impact actually, our traffic system. We should be able to answer the question. We have selected 2050 as our future year. We have like 300 plus traffic analysis zone. So we basically use Southwestern RPO, and based on the census borders, census block borders, we selected, we selected 300 traffic analysis zone. We are using employment data, and we are using like 8 different categories. We try to model the traffic on peak periods like AM and PM, and also we consider trucks and commercial vehicles in our model. We also use mobile phone data that are available by vendors to verify the traffic flow, and also we are trying to maintain the standards that are available in the industry. So yeah, these are the things that we have, and so far we have prepared and selected the study roads, working with the Southwestern RPO and local engineers. We selected our traffic analysis zone, designed actually. And if you look at the traffic analysis zone, you can see number 1, it's all residential. Number 3, it's, I can see it very well here from here. But one of them is a school, the other one is residential, another one is probably commercial. So all of them are homogeneous in some way. And also we extracted the population from the United States Census for year 2020, and based on the certificate of occupancy, we adjust those numbers for year 2021. We also, got the employment information from InfoUSA. InfoUSA is a very useful resource that we've used for the past 10 years. And so far, these are all the work that we have done. The next is the population trend in Graham County. This is actually part of the request that we have right now. What we need from the Graham County is a motion for approval of the growth rate of the population and employment actually. So if you look at the OSPM, Office of the State Budget and Management, for considering the, can you see the numbers? In 2010, the population of the county was 8,800, but in 2020, it's close to 8,000. There was a 10% drop. And based on this number, OSPM predicted a negative growth rate for the Graham County. And based on their opinion, Graham County population will go down in 2050. But this is something that TPT may disagree, and this is our opinion, and it's only for the model that we are using. If you look at the older data from 1970 to 2020, we are seeing every 10, 20 years we have a negative growth in the area. So 1970 to 80, we have 8. On average, each year we have like 8, 0.8% growth. 1918 to 1990, it was negative. 1990 to 2000 and 2000 to 2010, it was positive, and on average, the population grows by 0.8%. And we think in 2010 to 2020, although the population dropped, but we are expecting to see a growth in from 2020 to 2050, and for that reason, excuse me. We would like to recommend a 1% growth rate for both population and employment for the Graham County. This number is just for the travel demand model analysis. So we just want to make sure the population and employment that we are feeding to the model, it is based on the historical trend. It is not something that is not in line with reality. And based on the historical trend and the graph that we are seeing back there, I mean the 1%, it is a bit higher, but I think this is still reasonable. And if you look at the growth rate, we are seeing that population increased from 8,000 almost in 2020 to almost 10,000 in 2050. So 2,000 increase in 30 years. We think it's a reasonable, trend and growth rate for the Graham County. Same growth rate we are also recommending for the employment based on the Info USA data, which maintain and provide all the employment information for all the nation actually. There are about 4,000 people working in Graham County, and if we use the 1% growth rate, this number increases to 5,000 almost. So this is something that we are proposing, just the growth rate. We don't care about the population, the base number. Just the growth rate is something that is useful for us because we are not a demographer. We don't know how many people are actually living here, and we don't have enough resources to do that. Yeah. So
We have 5:30. I don't want to interrupt you, but we have to start this.
that was my last slide.
So, Kim, you got that? What motion you're asking
I did.
us for? Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. Members of the County Board of Commissioners are advised hereby that a duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of such conflict, and further are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this Board of County Commissioners with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. Commissioner Kelly, would you give a recommendation? Let's pray.
Good day, Heavenly Father. We thank you for this glorious day that you've given us. And Father, we just ask that you just continue just to watch over us and just protect us. Father, we ask that you just lead us in this meeting, just give us the thoughts and knowledge that we need. And Father, we're just so thankful for everything. And Father, we ask that you just lift up the ones in our county that are sick and ill, Father, and just continue just to bless them and protect them. And thank you again for everything that you do in your precious and holy name. In Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we'll add number 5A for the Southwestern RPO to make a motion to accept the growth rate as presented at 1% for population and employment.
So moved.
I will have a gutter quote under newer old business, and then we need to add Chris Ferris to closed session for privilege.
What was before that? I'm sorry.
A gutter quote for sanitation under newer old business. And then the last one will be adding Chris Ferris for privileged or confidential information. Some information we found out today regarding litigation.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve this agenda with those changes?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our workshop and regular meeting on November 15th, 2022?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor? All right, and do I have a motion to approve to accept the growth rate at 1% for Grant County as stated by the Southwestern RPO?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Let's call it. You have the floor. Yep.
Couldn't hear you.
Sorry. Just not working.
I had Kim to send us a copy of this to review and look at Friday, I believe it was. This is the grant management program for transit in our grant applications. We have passed every compliance audit and safety audit that we went through for the last 10 years without any findings. And we got a finding because our commissioners hadn't signed this. We have this already in documentation that was provided by Becky Carlin back in 2012, I believe it was, that's approved every single time that the commissioners had signed off on. But they wanted it documented and brought up by itself because that book's that big. So, we typed it and condensed it down just to these simple procedures. And I simply need you to adopt that as grant management procedures for Graham County if you've reviewed and studied. It's Graham County Transit only. This is the procedures for the grant management.
Are you asking for us to adopt that tonight?
Yes, sir, I am.
Do I have a motion to adopt this Graham County Transit grant management procedures?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
One other little tidbit, we also got an additional $19,733 in road monies to make our total $116,000 something, some odd change for the year, which we were very pleased to receive.
Good. Thank you, Juanita.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Coates, you have the floor.
You all, you go up there, you don't need to say.
It's up to you, whatever you do. It's up to you.
Okay, if y'all, if it's a pleasure, board, I'll just see and just read this too. I just got about 2 hours worth of stuff to go over. Can't do that yet early, so. Just wanted to kind of bring up some stuff on this. First of all, I just want to take and don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm got anything against any one of any of the departments within the county. But personally, I just want to thank them for the job that they do and have done. As a commissioner, I've failed to speak up. I have at times, but not as much as I should have. I have supported each department in the county to help obtain equipment and help add personnel, increase budgets, to help achieve these goals to our citizens and visitors so they could have the best services possible. I want to thank each person, churches, businesses in the county for helping our volunteers in many ways. Most of all, supporting we have received over the years. Now, I'm speaking as a member of Sequoia Township, the services that we provide there. I know other departments in the county feel the same way that I do, at least I hope so. Over the years as a commissioner, I have failed to speak up because I didn't want to seem like it'd be a conflict or show favoritism. I wanted to be fair and treat everyone the same and try to provide the support to make our county strong and provide the best for our people. Like I stated, I support each department when it comes down to it. But along the way, we forgot the volunteer departments who also put their lives on the lines as anyone else does in the county. These volunteers, and I'm speaking as the volunteer fire departments, that these volunteers didn't get a bonus during when the COVID hit or after the COVID. They responded to calls, even transported patients to the hospital, sat in the parking lots for hours as other EMS services do, fought house fires, brush fires, car fires, directed traffic, or whatever it needed to be done. Whatever was needed during the COVID, we kind of misplaced our volunteers. But we upheld our departments within the county and gave bonuses to those who deserve them. And I do agree. But unfortunately, we left out the volunteers who provided hours and hours of service to the county during this time. Today, I'm speaking for each one of the men and women who have volunteered and worked hard over the years to provide these services. Now, each of our departments, Grant County, Meadow Branch, Snowbird, Santigua, and Stickola, each of these departments are in need. 3 of the departments are in need of trucks, new trucks. 1 or 2 needs to expand the buildings so they can have room to put what equipment they currently have. In the past 20 years, I have seen other departments' budgets increase more than 50%. To make sure we provide the equipment, I have supported even a tax increase so we can make this happen. Over the years, while working on budgets, we have talked about putting aside funds to help or funds came available that we could use to help our fire departments. The fire department budgets have stayed about the same over the years. They have not changed. When I was looking for funds to help the organization where I work to obtain funds and resources, I came across the Local Assistance Tribal Contingency Fund, which is known as the LATCF. I forwarded this information to Becky and Jason for them to look into. Becky done her due diligence, so did I. We researched the information requirements for these funds, and what I came across was these was basically general funds, could be used with a broad area of restrictions. So I'm asking the board of the commissioners to use these funds to where, now I've lost my place, to use these available funds that were not budgeted for to be given to each of the fire departments in the county. I can assure you that these funds will not solve the problems. It will help put us in the directions and help to purchase what we need. I know some people have a negative approach for asking for these funds. I'm asking the people to go to their local departments and ask to see firsthand, to see what it costs just to operate these departments and what each of them are facing for this year and the years to come. When we put persons in vehicles that are over 30 years old or equipment that fails, who is liable? These funds will benefit the volunteer departments to help them provide better services to our county and the people that visit our counties. And with any of these funds will not be thrown away. They will be used wisely. And I just want to take and bring up some information that I also come across, but I just want to share it with you. In the future, it looks like that it's going to be required to have paid personnel in each fire district in each of the 100 counties in the state of North Carolina. That's in the future. And one of the things is, as a member of Stickola, we train together with Graham County, Meadow Branch, Snowbird, and Santigua. We're known as a brotherhood and sisterhood. We work together, we play together, we cry together, because we have lost a lot of our members in the past couple of years. But one of the things is, we stand and we respond to the needs of our fellow citizens of Grayson County. And we will not shy away from that. On the second note, I just want to take and also bring up to the board also, as in the past, I have been meeting at our fire station, and I asked our board of directors for permission to meet on Wednesdays, to be able to meet with the people of who have concerns within the county. I found out Wednesday was a bad night, even though I did have a lot of people come by and see. So now I'm moving it to Thursday from 6 to 7, so that way if somebody wants to come by and say, talk about anything related to the county, I'll be available from 6 to 7 p.m. on Thursday evenings before the Board of Commissioners meeting, which will be the second Thursday of each month. And personally, I want to thank each one of these board members and the board members in the past for making their contributions, and see that we did get those contributions over the years. And like I say, I'm speaking as myself, but I have failed as a commissioner to push and to make sure funding was received by our volunteer fire departments. Without them, we would be lost. Our volunteer fire departments have provided a rated system that has saved our public funds over the years. And hopefully in the future, we're going to reduce our rating, not reduce the rating, but reduce it a class, which means lowering the class means better protection and more money back into the homeowner's pocket. So I just wanted to say thanks to each and every one to give me this opportunity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. There's no doubt our community's better and safer because of our volunteers. Our departments couldn't do their job without them, there's no doubt. Do you have any specific requests, number-wise, or do you want to address this in budget coming up, or is this something, what's your desire right here?
Well, there's quite a bit of money that's there, and I know those funds can be used for different things. And I hope Becky don't go throwing rocks at me and stuff, because I'm in a financial situation. I'm kind of stingy about the way things is, and I'm sure she's the same way. But those funds is right at a little over $800,000.
Right, we got about half of it last month, and then I'm guessing the second part will come in probably early 23.
Yeah. And so if you divide that up amongst the fire departments, that's about $180,000. And really, it's not going to go far. But it's going to kind of give you an instance, SCBAs that we're updating, they're trying to replace, they run about $6,000 a piece, probably more. A replacement tank is $2,000. Fire gear has now went from nearly $10,000, just a gear. That does not, communication, that doesn't cover it, which we can't even get because of, lack of materials. But I know, some of the departments are trying to work on trying to obtain additional funding to be able to get in the process to where we can actually purchase another truck. I know Keith's working on it, Meadow Branch is working on it. I think Santilas would like to be able to expand to give Keith some room so they can move some trucks back down to their station and actually give them a better working environment down there too, because they're cramped down there. And Now, Snowbird, they're a little bit different. They've got equipment coming out the ears and they ain't got no room for it, so. But, the travel is really helping them. But we're all in a situation to where we're having to look for the future. And if we don't try to plan ahead, we're just gonna be in the same boat. And then when we do get our inspection, it's a possibility that we lose those ratings. And if we lose those ratings, then our people will suffer. And that's the biggest thing. But I'm gonna leave it up to the board, whatever they decide to do, because I wanted to bring this to the board's attention, and I just wanted to, put it out there. And, Becky may trip me a couple of times on the way out.
Have we discussed this in pot money and earmarket for anything else?
Not at this point, no.
Would you like maybe to get Becky and Lynn and the chair together and come up with a presentation for the board? Does that sound like a plan, Lynn, that you could support?
Yeah. I'm gonna support anything that goes to the departments. That's my goal is, and going forward, I guess I'm gonna be more stick, I guess, to be on, making sure we kind of see that these things need taken care of.
Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. And did you make any mention of the rescue squad? I know you were talking
Well,
about
we're
the funds,
all-
the ARPA funds.
We're just all the two squads and fire
that all?
departments and stuff, yes, all those.
That's all one unit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree with you. But if we can come up with a plan, we'll come up with
We'll
one.
get together and take a dive into it.
And Keith might be a good resource
Yeah.
in that conversation
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Darla.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of things that's not directly finance, but in a way it is finance. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the 555 Committee on the opioid settlement. We had a really good meeting this afternoon or this morning in reference to the settlement agreement that the national group has come up with the third round. This is going to cover Walmart, CVS, and several other retailers who have prescribed or who have been part of the pill mill issue with the opioid. If you'll recall, the first national settlement yielded about $750 million to the state of North Carolina, of which 85% is going to the counties and 15% back to the state. This second agreement is quite large as well. It's about 600 and some million that will come to the state. So the state will in effect get about between $1.2 and $1.3 billion over the 18 years for the settlement. That translates over the 18-year period for Brown County. You're going to use the same allocation formula to a little over $1 million over the 18-year period. And which translates to probably about $70,000 additional dollars per year that the county will receive. So that's really good news. What we discussed was that we would basically layer on top of the first MOA that was hammered out, basically just an appendices, or for lack of a better term, we'll just layer it on top. Same MOA, just different funds. They anticipate probably for all of this to get settled probably in the spring of 2023. And obviously, just as we had to sign on to the MOA, we'll have to sign on to the MOA as well for the new funds that will come in. One amendment to that is, if you'll recall, there was a lot, if you were paying attention to the NCACC, stuff going on back with the MOA, there was a lot of discussion about the attorney fees because some of the local councils felt like they had not gotten compensated the way they wanted to. So they're working on kind of a compromise where probably instead of it being an 85-15 split, it'll be like an 4.25, with the 0.75% going to the attorneys, which will translate for Graham County about $2,000 out of the total settlement. So it's kind of a small price to pay to get everybody to sign on to the MOA. So I was really excited about that this morning, to find out that they had come to that agreement. So we'll be watching for correspondence from the National Settlement Group. The payments will be made just exactly the way they are now. They're just basically they're direct deposited in our bank account. And also I'll be interested to see how the DOJ hammers out the MOA with the attorneys. So that's going to be some interesting information to have. Some other information to give you that's outside of the finance report, but it is part of the finance report, is our CDBG and Neighborhood Revitalization Program has finally begun to really move forward. Our housing specialist came out last week and met with 2 or 3 of the homeowners. I'll have a little bit more information I have to deal with in closed session under confidential information. But we are beginning to see progress. He will be doing basically the bid packet. Probably he'll have it ready at the end of January to go out to our local contractors or whoever. Obviously, we'll advertise for all, just like we've done on all the other projects, with the hope that we'll have local contractors respond and be able to get this work done. So that's, as I told the person that came out, it's like the baby I've been trying to have for 4 years, so now we're seeing the movement there. So that's just a bit of really good news I wanted to share with the board tonight. Now we'll get into the finance report, and I do have several things, so I'm trying not to bore you to tears, but there's several things that I want to go over with the board this evening. On the top, you'll see our regular finance report. And you'll see that our reconciled cash balance in the general fund at the end of November was $8,771,404. We're still running a little bit behind last year, but there's lots of good reasons for that, as we've gone over from previous board members. We've done a lot of really good things here lately in the county. But I will anticipate seeing that it'll go up in December, and it'll probably go up a little bit more in January, and then it'll start sliding down the hill for the rest of the year. Our capital projects fund is looking really good. We've got a little bit over $2.9 million in the capital management trust account. Capital projects, the school capital project accounts stay about steady at $115.5. We still have about $902.8 in American Rescue Plan money. So obviously, as we're talking about the Latchford money, probably the board needs to start thinking about the ARPA money again as well. And then our courthouse, the SCIF grant is standing at $5,060,000. That grant that money in the capital management trust is really yielding some good interest. This past month, if you look across the page, you'll see that we got a little over $28,000 in the capital management trust for interest. So that brings us year to date at $107,000. So I'm real excited to see those numbers. Now, that being said, it's because the Fed's coming up in interest rates, and they're going to hike it up again. The good news is it'll make our interest income go up. But the scary news is that as we move through our courthouse project and we're getting ready to start borrowing money, our cost of capital is going to go up as well. So probably will have a call scheduled with Mitch Bergulio with Davenport in January, so we can start thinking about that process of what we need to do and how we need to continue to plan forward. In that regard, we did meet with our architect and engineers. Was it last Friday, I believe? I'm not quite sure which day the days run together. So we did kind of a kickoff meeting with them, so they're beginning their work, and you'll be hearing and seeing more information on that as we go forward. But a big piece of that is going to be them doing their cost takeoffs of what the scenarios are. And we discussed looking at a new deal, but also looking at what it would cost to do renovations to the existing courthouse and adding on the back. So I asked them to do a cost benefit analysis of all the different scenarios and what it would cost over time as well to see, how things would move. As we run through we hope at least a 75-year life on whatever the board decides to do. That being said, anyway, we'll move forward to page 3 and we'll see the tax collections have ramped up. It's that time of year. The current year taxes were $1,126,500. Prior year taxes were a little shy of $10,000, so we collected a total of $1,136,429. And property tax, real property taxes, and then our VTS, which is our DMV tax, $41,167. Now you look across the page, we're still lagging a little bit behind last year on a monthly basis, and then if you'll turn to page 4, you will see that we're still in a deficit from last year, but that deficit is closing. So, as people begin to start paying their taxes, a lot of people will pay in the next week because they will get that tax write-off. Hopefully we'll see that deficit correct itself. Our tax collection rate is still just a tad behind this time last year at 42.67. Last year it was 43.82. So again, I'm hoping to see the momentum take forward. Most of your November collections, when you jump up, is escrows on mortgages. So we've been getting a lot of good checks there. Page 5, you'll see our operating results for the general fund. In November, we collected $2,138,000 in revenue. Expenditures were $1.4 million, so we had a surplus of $733,800. That will help us. We were in a deficit overall for the year up until November. If you turn to page 6, down at the bottom of in the green, you'll see that we now are at a surplus of $20,134. This time last year, we were at a surplus of $45,500, so we're not that far behind this time last year, but we're still chugging along. And you'll notice, as I reported last month, what we did get in the LATCF fund, that I call Latchford Fund, is $454,300. So that is money that, I agree with the board and with Commissioner Cody. This is money that we need to do some really good things with to support our people, and a big piece of that is our public safety and making sure that our people are protected via fire and rescue. So I'm not going to throw any rotten tomatoes at you. I think any time we can do good things for the people, it's always a wise investment. And we don't, as I mentioned last month, we don't want to just absorb that in the general fund and never know what happened to it. We want the people to get the benefit of this money. Page 7, you'll see our sales tax continues to be healthy. We got last week in, this is aside from the quarter cent, little shy of $275,000. Last month we got $266,000. Now this month that we got in just a few days ago reflects October and a beautiful fall, but also inflation. So I wish I could figure out how to split that out, but I don't know how I'm not that intelligent. Last year at this time it was $223,000. So that is helping. It kind of offset the fact that the property taxes have been coming in a little bit slower. We did get about $23,900 in quarter cent, which got added to we've wired out, which you'll see is the 163,093.79. We wired that out into the capital management trust. So that money, you'll see that balance will swing up when I give the December report. However, all total, we've collected since we started the quarter cent a little less than $893,000. So that's money that's sitting ready for that courthouse and that Justice Center as soon as we can get started on that. Page 8, you'll just see where we've been, what our tax balances are per year. And out of, when we started doing foreclosures, since then, it's been about 8 years ago, we've gotten $486,000. That's roughly 4 pennies on the mill rate that we didn't have to tax the people extra for. So I'm pleased that our tax collector continues to do a really outstanding job. The next page, on page 9, you'll see an update on our capital projects. You'll see that we've spent about $224,000 on this building, the renovations to the election board and bathrooms and so forth. The recreation building, we've spent a little over $94,000. I believe I heard today that they were doing the spray installation today, so that building's moving forward. All the IT has been installed. I think the HVAC, so we're getting there. Cemetery, we spent a little bit more. It's moved a little faster at 104.6. And then the county match that we have provided for the middle school, which is right now finished, is $1,142,000. So total of capital projects to date, since we started these projects, is a little less than $1.6 million. And you'll see that the total cost for the middle school to date is at $4.3 million. So as I said, I think they did a final punch list, from what I heard from Lester Green and Kevin White this past week. So they were hopeful that when the kids go back to school that they would be able to go back and start school. But they're waiting on something that has to do with the fire alarm system. There's one thing that they're waiting on, so it may delay them being able to get in there. But Kevin did say that if you haven't walked through it yet, there's an open house going to be scheduled in January. And that I think if you called him, he'd probably take you on a walk through one-on-one. He's real proud of that building. Budget, any questions on the finance report? Okay, on our budget, I'm going to, if you'll click on the top of the page, you'll see that we should have ideally 59% left in the budget as of the end of November. And you'll notice that pretty much all the departments are staying within that. There are a couple of departments. You'll notice the election board, due to that appeal from the Santigua, had really sucked on their budget for attorney fees and whatnot. So I have a meeting scheduled with Juanita and Teresa right after the holidays so we can reformulate that budget, like do a budget amendment. And communications, I highlighted it just because we have put that new pay plan in place. It's running a little ahead, but she's also had some larger expenditures too that kind of push that budget like it's ahead of itself. Paramedicine, we've encumbered our health call software. If you'll recall that's been grant funded. That Duke Endowment grant is ending. I'm doing a final report on it right now. But it is truly shown some great value, and I'm hoping that the board will see its value when we do budget. All the other departments, like I said, are pretty much within that budget. And we've got 60% left in our budget. So overall, the county's staying within budget. We're spending like we projected. I looked at revenues because I'm worried about property taxes and so forth. And we're tracking along pretty close to where we need to be on revenues in spite of the fact that taxes are a little bit lower. Any questions on the budget?
Any questions from Ms. Norman?
Okay, I'm going to move on. We do have a couple of expenditures I need the board to approve because it's above my spending limit. The first is our health call system, and that is our paramedicine system. That's our medical record system. This expenditure will be part of our final grant. So basically half of it is being covered by the Duke Endowment, the other half is by the county. But we have to pay for relicensing every year. And so that's an expenditure of $13,680. It is budgeted. So I just need approval to pay that.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Thank you. Then we also had our workers' comp audit. They actually came here for the first time in about 10 years, which was, it turned out to be a good thing because the auditor we had was pretty versed in local governments, and she was able to help me recode some employees to where we had a lower rate. So that's the good news. The bad news is that because we paid the premium paid in last fiscal year, that was about $500,000, that pushed our workers' comp amount up for EMS as well as the health department. So typically we get money back on our premium, but this year we don't. We owe. This is the first time in about 9 years that we owe on our workers' comp. But again, that's due to paying the premium payout. I begged and pleaded, and I asked her, surely there's a way that we don't have to pay workers' comp on that because that's a special payment that she wasn't buying my argument. So anyway, that being said, we do owe $21,114 on our workers' comp. I did anticipate owing about 10 in the budget, but not 21. So I'll need permission to pay that premium, but also I'll be bringing a budget amendment probably next meeting to cover the additional. So I will just need board approval.
So I have a motion to pay the workers' comp premium of $21,114.
Motion.
Any discussion on that? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you. We'll get that check out this week. All right, speaking of capital projects, when we did our capital project ordinance in early 2021, we were stabbing in the dark on what it would cost to do the building. Plus we were using pre-COVID building materials costs. So we, as I said, we created a capital project ordinance of $450,000. I'm hoping I'm way more than covering. I didn't get to talk to Jason and look at his updated cost estimate, but I'm projecting that the total cost of those projects will be about $600,000. That's well under what the original bids were when we were bidding it out for contractors to come in and do the work. And so I would like to update our capital project ordinance so that we don't overextend it. We don't want to do that under state law to $600,000. And this will supersede the capital project ordinance that that the board passed April 20th of 21.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the new capital project ordinance for Graham County to $600,000?
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion? Can we read that? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Thank you. All right. Last week when I was talking with Lester and Kevin from the school board, we were kind of doing a preliminary wrap-up meeting of cost estimates on the middle school. And they brought up a change order that related to the general conditions. I think that the contractor brought to this board probably in August or September. And then I think there was an additional request. And I've got to dive deep into what change orders we got against the grant. I did ask about why the DPI could not fund additional monies to what they originally set forth in their grant. And the DPI, Kevin had spoken with the DPI, and they said that whenever they set those grants, they make the request to the General Assembly. And that basically, once that gets presented to the General Assembly, it's set. There's no more money. Even though we could have gotten $15 million, which really, I'm not happy about that. But I understood what they meant. General Assembly appropriated the money just like we did. So we were discussing, what are some options, and I told them that I would bring this to the board for your consideration. You can say no if you want to, or however you want to deal with it. In the event that there's grant money remaining out of the 4.2 something million dollars that, or the 3.2 million dollars that the lottery is paying for, of which we pay the 25% match. In the event that there's money left, we can use that money for those general conditions. I have not done that analysis yet because they just came by last Thursday and I hadn't had time. But there's also an additional option. Okay, we all know that the school system gets the sales part of our sales tax. And I've given you kind of a report on where I'm projecting we're going to be for this fiscal year, as well as how we turned out for last fiscal year. Now, that being said, when we started the middle school project, we stated that the debt service on that middle school will come out of any sales tax surplus there is. And of course, at that point in time, we were planning that we knew the QSAB note was going to be paid off. And then, hallelujah, the high school is going to be paid off June 1. So that debt will be off of that. If you look at the projection in the green of what we project that there'll be in sales tax dollars above and beyond our debt service for this fiscal year, because we won't be, we'll be making our first installment on the note we issued in June. We're estimating about $215,000 that after we pay all the debt service, we would either we would hold that money in case sales tax drops. We all agreed that we would hold that money to ensure the debt service payment. This past fiscal year, if you'll flip to the next page in the green, the surplus, and this is a hard number, was $239,600. Okay. The school share of the debt service each year is going to be about $75,000 for the middle school. So there will be surplus there. I'm not saying that surplus will always be that big, because if things turn in the economy, that money is going to go down. So we need that reserve and that cushion. But my goal would be, if the board approves the general conditions, that number one, I would try to pull it from the grant dollars, because we'd only be paying the 25% of it, with the second level coming from those sales tax dollars. So instead of me putting those dollars in the capital management trust, we would pay the general conditions. Now, I'm not advocating either way. This is purely a Board of Commissioners decision. But the school board, or Kevin and Lester did ask for me to provide, look at it from my perspective, and then provide this information to the board. So this is more or less an FYI, or you guys can, if you choose to make an action on it this evening, we'll deal with it. But if you don't, then I will have a little bit more time to see how much conceivably more grant money is left over. We got our second to final pay request in the other day, and so I need to factor those numbers in, and then what will be left will be the retention, and then if you pay the general conditions, that would be what we basically do. So that's my spiel on general conditions.
So I think I heard you say if you had a little more time, you would have more accurate numbers to be talking to us about and giving to us to make a decision. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. So.
Is the board agreement that they can do an analysis on this grant here? Okay.
I'm trying to get it done, but I'm trying out of need, so
Let's do that.
I didn't have time. Okay, Now, the last thing, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long, if Raymond were here, he'd be fussing at me by now. We have completed the audit. It's been, I think I emailed this out Friday night before last, that the audit had been submitted to the local government commission. We are waiting for their final approval on it, but I did want to go over some highlights. I pulled, the audit report's 127 pages. So I pulled some highlights out, and you'll see this again because the auditor will be giving her report in January, and I want to go over some of the things with the board so that you'll be familiar with it when she comes. First highlight is, and I'm not going to go through each page, I'm just going to talk with all my talking points because I figured that way you guys can take the time. I know you'll be doing this on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, you'll be reading this stuff, so we want to go through this. We did get another modified or clean opinion on the financial statements. That includes the general Graham County government as well as the Travel and Tourism Authority and the RDA. And if you'll recall, the board voted to consolidate that into one report. So, and that worked pretty good as far as the audit process was concerned. So we do have another clean opinion. One thing of note is we had to implement GASB 87, which is how we account for leases. Apparently, I'm going to say this is an editorial opinion from an old bean counter. I think sometimes the GASB and the FASB just love to sit up in New York and come up with things to make life more miserable for accountants and the readers of the financials as well. But basically, we used to treat, if you just went out and rented something, you experienced it and it was over and done with. If you wound up paying $1 for whatever you were leasing, you treated it like you was buying capital outlay. Not so simple anymore. We have to pick up the rent that we pay as expenditures, but then we have to treat whatever we're renting as a right to use asset, which is treated like capital outlay. So in my opinion, you're booking an expenditure twice, but I'm not in charge of the GASB or the FASB. And then you treat it like it's an asset that you depreciate, but they don't call it depreciation, they call it amortization. And so you're running all these different schedules all at once to deal with, for instance, a bunch of copiers that at the end of 4 years I'm going to be turning in and be done with. Anyway, just wanted you to know that we got that fully implemented this past year. I'm just going to audit highlights.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just working off this. Our general fund balance increased by $485,000 this past year. And all total, the fund balances for our special revenue and capital projects increased by $1,053,000. And that does include our ARPA money. Our unassigned fund balance, which is money that is spendable right now, was little over $6.8 million. But our unrestricted fund balance, which we can appropriate, was sitting at $7.2 million. Now, our total fund balance is about $9 million, but part of it's restricted. If we look at, this is a number we talk about a lot during budget, our fund balance as a percentage of our expenditures. If we look at it, including all our restricted cash, we were sitting at 45%. Excluding our restricted cash, 38.6%. So it dropped just a little bit, but we knew it was going to because we knew we were going to be doing capital projects and different things like that out of fund balance. Just things to consider as we walk. Believe it or not, it's getting ready budget season. The unrestricted fund balance above the 35% benchmark, and the 35%, if you'll remember, is what local government commission suggests that counties have that are our size. It's a little over $677,000. So these will be things that we talk about a lot during our budget process. But we've come a long way. Because when we got here in 2009, that number was at 6%. So we were way below having a month's worth of fund balance in case we had an emergency. Typically, 8% is a month's worth of expenditure. So, if you get below that, you're in big trouble. That's when local government commission starts calling and knocking on the door. Our tax collection rate was at 97.91. That was a little bit higher than last year of 96.5. So that helps us again in our budget process. And you'll hear us talking about that when we get into the budget. Capital outlay, excluding capital projects, we spent $434,000. We funded all of that out of general fund revenues. So I remember the days when we had to borrow money just to buy CO2 monitors and things like that. So that's a good thing. We did do a debt financing, as you're aware, of $2.1 million for the school construction match and local capital projects. That way we could smooth the budget out. If we were to spend that down, our fund balance would have dropped tremendously. So that's how we leverage our money. And then we also, if you'll remember, we got $325,000 in USDA loan to reimburse us for where we bought the garbage truck. As far as compliance is concerned, that's always a big deal. Stewardship under North Carolina general statutes, we had no violations, no over expenditures of budget, no violations of state or federal law, so that's always a good thing. Our federal single audit, which includes DSS, the ARPA money, and CDBG projects, we had an unmodified or claim opinion on those. State single audit, which included our state DSS funds and the middle school grant, we also had an unmodified opinion. We did have some findings, however. I'll go through these, and I think I'll outline these in an email I sent week before last. We did had no material weaknesses in our internal control system, but we did have some significant deficiencies that we found, and that is a deficiency in internal control that's less severe than a material deficiency, but we need to pay attention. The first deficiency is the audit is due October 31st. We got it uploaded December 8th. Of course, GASB 87 played a piece in that. And we had COVID hit finance, so for a few weeks there, it was just me for it. We had staff turnover, and then the workload with grants has become tremendous. So that's putting a lot of pressure on finance to keep up. However, 2 years ago, the audit was submitted in April. 1 year ago, the audit was submitted in March. So we have improved and we have a plan. So I think we're going to meet October again this next year. If nothing happens, if nobody gets COVID. The second deficiency related to DSS. The state pulls a sample of Medicaid cases and food stamp cases every year. We were fine on food stamps. They pulled 91 cases to review, of which one had an eligibility error. That's less than a 1% error rate. However, the state auditor said if we have one error, it's a right. So, and I understand where Ms. Wood's coming from because these are big dollars. And it did mirror where we were in those RETA audits because we had about the same error rate. But the big deal as far as the state's concerned is that the state is having to do a massive payback to CMS for a lot of Medicaid eligibility errors. And so that's why the state auditor is being so hard on counties to make sure we get it right. And I get that. I understand and I appreciate it because we don't want to do anything wrong. Our DSS director jumped right on it and got with the state and they got an action plan in place. And we've gone 3 months without any problems on our RETA audits as well as eligibility. So the state's pretty well, as far as DHHS is concerned, they cleared us, and that's part of what we've responded to. Then we had an issue with the jail inmate funds. When an inmate comes in, they put money in their account for commissary and whatnot. And we had a system put in place where we had a computer system, the money would go, they would log it in, it would be taken to the tax office, finance would have custody over the money, and then if the inmate was released or transferred, then they would refund their money back to them. Okay, That was the system that got put in place in 2009. I kept asking for the reports and wouldn't get them. Finally, I called and I said, where are my reports? Because the previous year, everything was great, everything tied, we were all good. And come to find out, the former chief of detention had decided that we didn't need those controls anymore, and that we just go to cash basis, and that they would just hold the money in envelopes and then refund the money out of the envelopes because it was too inefficient to wait on finance to cut checks. The problem was that if they kept track of the money in a book and on the computer, and usually we're holding about $2,000 at the time, and kept track of it on who got owed what, it'd been not as okay as I would have liked it, but it would have been passable. But what was going on is the money was being just, okay, you're out, and just hand them their envelope with no record keeping. So when I found that out, I self-reported to the auditors because I want to make sure, I want everything to be above board. And so I got myself written up for reporting, but I'd rather get written up for doing the right thing as not being written up and doing the wrong thing. With the new administration, I met with the sheriff, and he's very cognizant and aware of what needs to happen, and very supportive of finance doing what, putting internal controls in place. And also met with the chiefs of detention, I think Thursday afternoon, and they have put the system back into place. They reconciled the cash, and thankfully, what they could tell, they were like $6 off from what they thought they should have had. But I had already in September told the detention chief, you get this back in place now, and you get me these reports so that we can reconcile this back. So that was our third write-up. And I'm just thankful that, the new detention officers understand what needs to happen and are quite happy to do that. Our next steps is waiting on the final review or final approval by the LGC. We also will do our self-reporting with our unit letter that you're familiar with. And then I'm working on an RFP, as we discussed in the budget, for an audit firms because it's time to look at those things. Any questions? I'm sorry, it's long-winded. Okay, and one last thing on your desk. You will see the draft of the unit letter that I wrote today. This is not due until the middle of, 8th day of February. It has to be submitted within 60 days. But basically, the letter states everything I said about timeliness of the audits and what our plan is. I mentioned in the unit letter that we have a learning curve with staff. We also had COVID, but also that the county commissioner in the last budget did approve for finance to add a position. We haven't done that yet because I wanted to evaluate where we were with our new person, and she's doing quite well. However, we have $10 million in grants I'm working on right now, doing compliance and reporting. So what I'm hoping to do is to be able to start recruiting someone who can, who has a little higher level of accounting knowledge, who can act as a grant accountant under my supervision, so that we can tag team those grants, because there's a lot of work has to be done. If we don't do it right, we're in big trouble. And also, continuously looking at our deadlines and working with staff to make sure we get the audit in on time. I also put in the unit letter about our second finding on DSS eligibility, and I plagiarized the letter from DHHS on what the action plan was and how we have made strides there, and then I spoke about the jail inmate funds and what the plan was and how to place the internal controls back into place. I ended the letter with Graham County recognizes the necessity of good internal controls and stewardship over public funds. All findings and recommendations are taken very seriously, and we will continue to closely monitor all aspects of internal control, as well as work with department management to ensure program compliance and adherence to those internal controls. We appreciate the support that the Local Government Commission provides to our county, and we use every audit as a learning opportunity to do our jobs better and more efficiently. Gaining fully qualified and trained staff in the finance office will help to ensure our success. Now, these unit letters have to be signed by the board, so it has to be approved by the board. If you want to review it over the holidays and read through it and at the next meeting and approve it then, that's fine. If you want to approve it now, that's fine too. I'll upload it. If not, I'll wait till January.
Is it rushed? Is it a rush deal? Or do we have plenty of time?
We've got time.
Plenty of time?
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
Yeah. And I didn't expect you to tonight, because like I said, I just drafted it today.
Thank you.
Does everybody want to take a look at it?
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Becky.
Sorry to take so long.
Public comment.
Just on the side note, Rebecca was talking about the audit stuff. The audit measures are going to be changing next year. Also, there's new requirements of finance officers
Yes.
changing next year. So there's all kinds of things that's going to be
Yes.
new to a lot of people
Yes.
next year.
And one thing I'm glad you brought that up, because I almost forgot, is that by statute, under 159, the finance officers should be bonded at maximum $100,000, which is way lower than it ought to be. That statute was passed like in the 50s or 70s. So the new requirement beginning with our new fiscal year in 71 will be $1 million. And I'm glad for that. I mean, I think all counties should be, I've always thought that was way too low for a county to be bonded at $100,000.
Jack Gross, you got the floor.
Good evening, everybody. As you can tell, we're all aware it's getting that time of year again, so I'm sporting my Christmas love. And I wish to thank each and every one of you and all county staff for everything that you do for the people in this county. You do a great job. Tom and I attend these meetings fairly often, so thank you very much. One other comment, hopefully the appeal for that voter thing, should those who appeal lost, I hope that the county can go back after the additional legal fees in the end, but all I can do is hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Yep. Discussion items.
All right, we have releases for 42271.
I have a motion to approve the releases for $422.71. Motion. Is that a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Approval of the polls, if you want to just do it all at one time, if that's pleasing to the board. 1128, the training for the deputies. 1207 was the Christmas gift to the employees that was very well received. Had many emails thanking you guys for that. It has helped a lot of people. 12.8, HVAC replacement for DHHS building. We were hoping that we were only going to have to replace one and repair the other one. As you can see, the next poll was for the second one. It went down in between times. So that was all the polls for that time.
Do I have a motion to approve these polls as stated? Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right, of course, our Christmas holiday closure has been posted in the paper, but it'll be Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, and the county offices will be closed. Transit will still run, Sheriff's Department, 911, all those essential services will remain open. We did have one item under new business, and it was a gutter quote for sanitation. We've had a hard time getting any quotes. I think we put one out to repair the floor in the building, and so far I think it's run, I know, 1 week, and we've not received the first bid at all. So we're having a hard time getting people to do any kind of quotes, but we do have the one.
This is the only quote for repairing the gutter, correct?
Yes.
That's for Kelly Andrews Building. it's gonna be white 6-inch seamless gutter with the guards, removing the old gutter, and hauling it off, $6,300 even.
Which building is this for?
This is for the sheriff's department.
Sorry, I said sanitation, didn't I?
That's what he has on his bid, the sheriff's department.
Okay. Do we have that in the budget, for capital?
We don't have any specific thing, but we always put money in
We
there
have money
for stuff like this.
improvement?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve $6,300 for gutter replacement at the sheriff's department?
Motion.
Second? Second. All in favor? All right, any more your own business?
No, other than Jason had a family emergency and he could not come, but you do have your project management list update. That's on your desk, so y'all can look over. If you have any questions, just let me know and I can get those to him.
You mentioned that floor. We may not have to do that. It could be under.
Yeah, the floor, yeah, we were trying to do, and that was the sanitation. I think there was a leak on the roof and has caused a problem for the floor to be, but it can fall under our capital projects if you're fine with that. If we can't find somebody to do it, I mean, Jason can take it under his wing and try to go from there if y'all are okay with that.
It needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. You need a vote or a directive or?
I don't think so. We're not going to get so far we haven't gotten a bid for it at all, so it will have to fall under him if that's pleasing with the board.
Yeah, that works. Good with it?
Yes, it's.
All right. All right, if there's nothing else, then I will take a motion to go into closed session under GS 143-318.11A1356. Privileged or confidential information, attorney-client privilege, personnel and contracts with a 5-minute break.
Break. Merry Christmas.
If you want a 10-minute break. All right, 10-minute break.